Hello, and welcome to the Physical Therapy Owners Club podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Shields. And today I've got a guest that I've wanted to have on for a long time, super successful PT owner, and is literally doing his own thing. Roland Cochrun, he is an executive coach and PT. And first of all, Roland, thank you for coming on. I appreciate you joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Man, I met you about a year and a half ago at PPS and heard your story. I was like, dude, that is the exact type of PT owner that a lot of us aspire to be like and want to learn from. And so I'm excited that I finally got you on to the podcast to share a little bit about your story and what you're doing now. So if you don't mind, just share with everybody a little bit about your adventure, your journey to this point.
Yeah, sure. So from day one, I was 15 years old and I went to San Diego, and in order to have use of the car, these guys, my friend's older brothers, we needed to paint this wall, okay, at their new business. So no big deal. So we came there, and I remember looking around, and I was seeing these athletes. They're doing crazy stuff, soccer drills, sports drills, and I was like, "What is this? What is this place?" I had no idea. I don't think the signage was even up. And turned out it was a physical therapy clinic, and it was just a cool environment. Now, luckily, they were the brothers, the owners were in their 30s, and so they were really cool, relatable, and what a cool experience as a 15-year-old to meet business owners who are in their 30s. And I think the coolest thing was they were just so passionate about what they wanted to do. That really rubbed off on me. And so I came back every single summer for 7 years. And obviously looking up to these guys, I wanted to do what they did. But it was another 11 years until I was going to graduate from PT school.
Yeah, sure.
So this was where, and this is kind of the piece that everybody can put into practice. I still do exactly these elements to this day. With 11 years, I had to act. I couldn't stand waiting. It was just so stagnant. I mean, over a decade I had, right?
Yeah.
So I got right into it. So I went to my first private practice annual conference in Seattle when I was 16 years old.
No way.
Alone. And I never missed a year since. I even went to even just this last October in Orlando. I went, absorbed all the information I could. I sat on the Insurance Alliance when I was still in high school.
Really?
About payment. Luckily when you're enthusiastic and genuine, people will invite you into their homes. And so I got to know all of the heavy hitters, people who owned hundreds of clinics, 30 clinics, and they just, it took me right in. And so between all of the just kind of involvement nationally and their mentorship and just friendship, 11 years went by, and I'd moved on to, logo design, employee handbook writing. I absorbed all that I could, and it was just ready to pull the trigger. So
are you saying that are you saying you started like employee handbook writing prior to even owning a clinic?
Yep. In high school, I had, unfortunately, I didn't update it until like a year or two in, which naive. Everyone's like, "Hey, we got our birthday off and paid." I'm like, "Oh man, it's a newbie mistake when you're," but we had to keep that in, and it's since grown. So that's been an expensive piece of gratitude that I put in there when I was in high school. But employee handbook and policies and procedures handbook written then.
You wrote them all up before you even opened the doors?
Before I graduated from high school.
No way. Oh my gosh, dude. So you were ready to go right out the gate.
Well, and as you can imagine, when I opened, it opened quick. Yeah. I mean, I was I broke even at month 2 and was profitable by month 3. And then I basically 2x'd every year.
No way. Congratulations, dude. And along the way, did you get you were obviously networking like crazy. Did you get some coaching and consulting along the way as well?
So, what's funny? So I'm actually a coach now.
Yeah.
I coach to my PT clinics and
Yeah.
the people who run them for me, and then
Hmm.
I also consult my services out as
Yeah.
a profession. But the funny part about that question is, I actually grew up a little resistant because being a non-business owner and attending PPS,
Hmm.
I had a different view. I saw things. I was absorbing. I didn't have necessarily an agenda in mind. Well, what that
Okay.
did was I saw a lot more stuff that most people don't see in terms of alternative gain. So I actually grew up a
Okay.
little opposed to coaching
Oh,
because I saw a lot of self-orientation within them and their agenda. I'd see them just circulating around and,
hmm,
networking, sure. But at the same time, it put me off a little bit,
okay.
and which is funny. And so fast forward, yes, absolutely. I realize what we all do. We can't do it on our own.
That's
We're in a
right.
lonely world. And
That's
so,
right.
yes, I eventually started seeking advice and coaching for sure.
Good. Because it's so much. My mantra, if you haven't listened to my podcast, is reach out, step out, and network. And you obviously took networking to a whole different level from a very early age, but you finally came around to recognizing that you needed to reach out to a coach or consultant. And I'm assuming that pretty soon after opening up, you stepped out of treating altogether, or did you even take some time to treat initially?
So, great question. I love that question. There was, full disclosure, full honesty, there was a year where, yeah, I got trapped by just a complete overwhelm. And,
Hmm.
once you get stuck in that 70-plus hour treatment, oh man, I
Yeah.
mean, weeks turn into months, and a month turned into a year. So yeah, I got to a point where I kind of plateaued.
Oh.
Here's how I describe it.
When you say plateaued business wise?
Well, I just kept absorbing all the work. So
Oh, okay.
I was still killing it from a financial
Okay.
standpoint,
Financially, you're
but I
killing it,
was,
but you had plateaued professionally, I guess you would
yeah,
say.
I wasn't,
Yeah,
it was not very entrepreneurial. It was,
sure.
I looked more like somebody who just didn't know what they were doing. And now that I
Okay.
look back on it, but here's exactly why. I made a plan, and I even had goals, Nathan, that had a finite end.
Yeah.
And so I achieved them, bought the R8, did all the cool stuff.
Mhm.
And I found myself kind of in this, now what? And
Oh, okay.
like they always say, unless you take control, your default is more. And
Mm,
so without goals and a vision, the default was just, well, let's just stack it up. And
okay.
so I was just focused on padding that bank account with a scarcity mentality of what if,
Hmm.
what if patients' new visits drop? And yeah, when it's all about money, it's very easy to grow a very scarce, finite mindset because it's so transactional. There's no.
Totally. Totally. And what I think a lot of owners go through is kind of what you're talking about, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but what they go through is they go from treating and to step out of treating. They don't know what to do with their time. I'm having this conversation with some of my coaching clients is, okay, well, now that I'm not treating, I've got this vacuum. How do I fill my time? I don't want to be surfing the internet, which will be my default. And inevitably I'm the filler inner when someone goes on vacation, and I don't want to do that. But what should I do with my time? I mean, so tell me a little bit about your story there. Then, how did you get out of treating, and then make yourself? I don't want to use the word productive, but how did you um, do what's best for the business after stepping out?
I love it. Great question, because I think you can either spend 1 year there or 30, right? And
Totally.
so it's a very, very easy place to stay, especially if you're pulling in, a 500,000 or something like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
your motivation is, if money's your only motivation, yeah, you'll just stay there. So great
Nutrition.
question. I love
Yeah.
that. You know, I just woke up one day and kind of asked, and we've all asked ourselves this question in some degree: do I really want to do this for another I mean, shoot, sometimes it's just 5 years. In my
Totally.
case, I'm 30 years
Totally.
old. So I was asking myself, do I want to do this for another 40 years, 30 years? And man, when you say that out loud and really um, put that in perspective to time in your life and what you're saying no to when you're saying yes to work,
Hmm.
that was the moment. I remember it. It was a Friday. I took the Friday off, and I remember just looking out the window and thinking, man, where did my entrepreneurial and creative and inventive spirit go? I mean,
Mm.
I can call myself an owner, but I might as well just be an employee at this point, as it's just plug and chug, going
Yep.
through the motions. So that was the moment where it's like, I need to do it different.
Hmm. And so what was your step? I mean, you invested in another PT. Then what did you, we don't have to get too far into the details, but how did you find yourself becoming more productive when you stepped out of treating?
Good question. I think you have to. I'd love to give somebody an easier answer, but I think I've being coached and now coaching. Maybe there's a better way, and please, you teach me from your experience. I think you just have to. The pain just got to be great enough one day to just finally say, "I'm I'm going to hire and I'm going to give my hours to that person." And and we all make up some sort of, I'll
Totally.
do this kind of days, this kind of day. In the end, right when you do that, it ends up being just an all or none, because you find out how disruptive it is to have you with one foot in, one foot out.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, that's how it went for me. We were overstaffed, and rather than paying a PT to not work while I treated patients, which
Yeah.
is just pure insanity, um, I gave my caseload away, and I never took it back.
That's great. Yeah. It changes. You have to get to that certain point. And when I take on a coaching client, I'll have them fill out a survey. And towards the end there, I'm saying like how a 0 to 10, how interested are you in changing your current circumstances? And the people that I want to work with are the ones that put down 10. Like, I want to change now. I can't keep doing this, because I was at the same point that you were. I was like, okay, because people would ask me in social instances, hey, how's the business going? I'm like, oh, dude, I love treating patients, but I can't stand the business. I can't keep doing this for another 5 to 10 years. The burnout is real. It exists in PTs for sure. And so I figured out I have to do something different. When I finally wrote the check, lots of money to the consulting firm to get some coaching, that was what was the refrain going off in my head. We've got to do something different. Something's got to change. And so when people get to that point, they recognize, okay, I will make the investment. I might lose money in the first month, but the time that it will free me up to do X, Y, and Z for my business will more than make up for that initial investment, because I'm going to be able to market more. I'm going to provide structure for my business. I'm going to create a company culture that retains better. I'm going to hire better. I'm going to be able to recruit. You name it, all the things that you should be doing as an owner, you can finally get to. And it's not, like you said, transactional. It's not, I treat this patient, I get this amount of money anymore. It's, I'm going to put in my time and energy, and then that's going to return back to me in multiples in what I do for my business. And I think that's what you saw it, I'm
Yeah,
assuming.
you said it right. It's basically, you just ask, you have that point of reckoning where it's like, holy, I don't know how this happened to me. And
Right.
then that goes one of two ways. You either suppress it and try not to think about it, or like you said, you and some of us can have the power to make the right step. I think a lot of entrepreneurs spend too much time innovating, dreaming, and wanting to do the fun stuff, which is great. That's where they should be. And then that's where, yeah, a coach or a consultant comes into play, because it's like, you know what? I could hire someone else who's an expert at
Mhm.
organizing my dreams,
Yeah.
and then I'll move faster. And yeah, you can do one of the two ways. I find most people wind up hiring the consultant. I think a lot of people, look at what I did and hiring someone when I was 28 and freeing myself from work and money by 30. That's, people joke with me and say, Roland, oh, I want to be you when I grow up, right? And they're in their 60s and 70s. And I actually don't find that funny, because and I try not to laugh, because I don't want it to be a joke. And I just look at them and I always say, I did this in 3 years, created millions in 3 years. Would you be willing to do it from age 61 to 64? Would you be willing to put it all in for whatever, $4 million bucks? They always say yes. And so it's, I don't find that a joke. I think the moment that you decide I'm going to get help and do things faster, it starts that next day. It really does. It's a decision, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it needs to happen. It needs to happen quickly, and you need to take action relatively immediately, or you're just going to sit on it a little bit longer.
Like I said, 1 year turns into 30.
That's right. Yeah. So what are you telling the people that you're coaching with nowadays? I mean, well, first off, I've got to ask you, what was you've got a superpower. There's something about you, even in my short interactions with you, that there's something different about you that would make you go to a PPS meeting at 15, 16 years of age, and hobnob and network at such a young age, stuff that we're learning in our mid 20s and 30s. What's your particular superpower, and what are you trying to instill in people that you coach?
That you can choose. I didn't have a bad upbringing, but I didn't buy into the crap that people were telling me to do. I just didn't see. A lot of people, I think, listen, okay, go to this school, do this thing, work this hard, achieve this, apply for this, and then buy this, and then you're there, right? I guess I just never, I don't know if it was the chain of circumstances of how I grew up, but I guess I just never bought into that. I didn't see why you had to do one thing because someone said to do it, and that I have to just accept the byproduct and the consequences of all of those chains of events and decisions. I didn't see why that had to be the only way. What I saw was, what about the way I want to do it? What about the life that I want? What if all of those check boxes achieved a lifestyle and an income that didn't serve me well? And I just looked around, and I that's my superpower. And I never knew what it was, and I never thought I was special, or I didn't even like when people complimented me, because I'm just like, hey, I'm just a guy. But, in hindsight, looking at what made me different, my superpower was doing me, and taking control of my life, my decisions, what was going to happen to me, because I was not going to let it happen and find myself 50 or 60 years old and watch someone else live my life. That was just not going to be the way it was going to go.
Yeah, I'm kind of sensing that you had an inner purpose, and maybe it wasn't detailed and written and spoken regularly by you to yourself, but you had an inner purpose, and you knew there were things that you wanted to do from a very young age, and your life then. eh, I'm just putting out Nathan's theory here, right, on Roland's life. But I like to come back to purpose, because it's usually when you get to that point on the Friday that you're talking about, when you're like, okay, this isn't working for me, that your actions and your purpose aren't in alignment.
Yeah.
And so when you get to that point, like, this isn't what I'm living for, and I'm acting like this. I know I know what I want, and I need to do something different, even if I don't know what it is. What I'm doing now is not fulfilling that purpose, and I need to go find it. And you were willing to invest in, or take your patient load, push it off onto someone else in order to take the time to find it. And man, what you've done since then has been a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah. You can either let you can either let your life happen, or you can just become a little bit more aware of the things that can change it. And
Mm.
that's really all it is just looking at it a hair. I'm talking, and Nathan, I'm just talking about just a tiny little bit different. What that what if, because if you can
Mm.
ask yourself that what if at any point in time. I was lucky to start asking myself that at about 8, 9. But you can ask yourself at any moment. I had a coaching call this morning with a guy in his 50s, and yeah, that was kind of the theme of the call was, what if you could? And it just changed. It changed his entire, um, changed his plans, his perspective on, man,
Mm.
what if it could happen? Because I think you'd be surprised if you just make that shift.
Yeah,
Um, Now, kind of one of the coolest things about the COVID shutdown is the impossible all of a sudden is possible. All this stuff that
that's
we
true.
refuse to see, it's just changing and happening. And we're starting to, we all joked about uncertainty being everywhere. Yeah, it's everywhere now, and you cannot deny it. And every time you turn on the computer, the news, something crazy you didn't think was going to happen happened.
Yep.
So anything's possible, and you can take control. Even in an uncertain circumstance, you can make the choice all day long.
Yeah, and that's what comes out of these uncertain circumstances are people who would take advantage of the opportunity and make changes for good. Like I would hate for any of my clients to, well, anyone out there that's listening, I challenged them during the course of the pandemic to not go back to business as usual. If you did, you lost a golden opportunity to reset and make your clinic what you want. Make your company exactly what you want, make your lifestyle exactly what you want. Push the reset button, not necessarily pause, let's just push reset and let's do things differently and get out of your clinic what you really want. Figure out your purpose, to go back to that. But, ask yourself questions. What if? Because we have these ideas like, oh, I can't hire a PT because I'm going to lose money on that, right? And how do I afford that? Well, what if you could? What if you could hire the PT and make money even more than what you're making right now? Well, now working into that frame of mindset leads you to action and inspiration, right? And or using a question that another coach asked a successful PT owner that I know, Jeff McMenamy, on a previous podcast was, if you had all the money in the world, what's the next step you would take? And we're not talking about go buy an island or your favorite car. What's the next step you would take in your business, right? If money wasn't a concern, what's the next step you would take? Because that really takes money off the plate and really focuses you back on what you're doing and your purpose again, I think. And are you fulfilling that? And so I think those are valuable questions, especially ask at this time is, what are you doing? What if? What are the possibilities? What could you do to have a more fulfilling life and a better lifestyle, see your family more, be with your kids more, enjoy a hobby, you name it. Be in Airbnbs for a couple months at a time, going all over the world like Roland. You know,
You said I like it because PTs are special group of people. I finally got my
Mhm.
first PT client actually a couple
Really,
months ago, which was fun, really fun
yeah,
for me because given that was my background, it's
yeah.
just a fun thing to do. A little bit more knowledgeable in the area, I suppose. Um, they're a special group of people. They have a gift of healing that is deeper than the hands, right? These are individuals that chose a profession that they knew going into it was undervalued, underappreciated, underpaid. They knew this. They didn't care. They signed up anyways.
Yeah.
So that's number one. Number two is the style of treatment and the way that we are just trained to perform, the way we want to perform, provides something that is almost supernatural in the sense that we provide them a safe place to heal, is the way
Hmm.
I've always seen it. And the reason I'm going this direction is because PTs, right, they always want to it's extremely valuable and everyone wants it. It's just the problem is only 10% of the population knows how valuable it is, right?
That's right.
Well, this shutdown, people want what they want normal. Well, normal's different now. So it's not coming back in the same way, and it probably won't, and it probably shouldn't. But here's what PTs can provide people is that new sense of normal within a healing and empowering environment, right? So you can now allow whoever your ideal client is to come to a safe place where they can have this new sense of normal and almost reinvent whatever it is that whatever your transformation is that you sell. So if it's chronic pain and people who have been able to, forget about their pain, maybe for the first time, or if it's athletes and they're achieving a college-bound dream, that transformation is the new normal. They're no longer going to seek the same things they did. And I would also argue that they used to seek the comfort and safety in social media. I think that that's been destroyed over this because it's just full of so much junk right now that even that's not a safe place.
Mm-hmm.
We're exhausted looking at it. So they're looking elsewhere. And if you don't show up for them and become that solution, they're going to find a different place to be normal. And so it's a cool place as a business owner, especially a PT owner, to be that solution for the people who are looking, because the intention right now is there and it's cheap and or free and they want it. And you just need to be there and be a PT for them.
Yeah, exactly. Now, as you mentioned that you had your first PT owner that's a client. How does your coaching differ now as you're working with a PT owner compared to other executives that you're working with? Do you notice a trend amongst with the PT owner that you don't see in the others?
So love that. So on my website, I created a tool, and the tool, my team made one for you guys. So it's rolandcochrun.com/PTO club.
Cool.
So for those listening to this podcast, rolandcochrun.com, COCHRUN /PTO club. So cool. That'll get you to my tool download, and it doesn't differ. And that's why I invented this tool. Now that tool made me multi seven figures and still is in my PT businesses. But what I realized was it's all the same stuff. Clearly being the solution, clearly, not to you, but to them. So learning how to communicate what you actually do for them, not the features, but the real transformation. Because you probably don't know. You just haven't spent the time. It's not your fault. It's just we're caught up in our own stuff. So clearly being the solution for them, positioning yourself as an expert and the answer, and then bringing your clients to you and not constantly spending money and time trying to get to them. If you do those three things, it's the same elements in business. And I would say I think business owners outside of PT are jealous of how easy it is for us to do those things. Clearly be the solution, be an expert, and create an environment where your clients want to be. Come on, we have that easier than any other business, really.
Well, tell me about step number 3, because the story that always goes around is that no one wants physical therapy. I mean, they want personal training, they want maybe diet help and that kind of stuff, but no one wants to go to physical therapy. How do you create an environment where people want to come and you don't have to go out and grab them and pull them off the street?
Oh man. RolandCochrun.com/PTO club. So the tool
is this a secret that we're getting into? Are we sharing too much?
We can go there. It ain't no
That's
secret.
Awesome.
It ain't no secret at all. This is the 7-figure answer to, and I use the same tactic with all of my clients, and it's nothing new. It's been done around. It's just, there's a difference between those that have decided to own it and those that are too scared and want others to own it for us because we don't want to take the responsibility. So it's bringing your clients to you can look like anything. Me and you are doing it right now. We're creating a place for safety, content, and empowerment so people can achieve whatever they want. And they're going to seek that out. And you're either going to watch other people do it, or they're going to be the ones helping everyone. So that's what it is. It's free help. And it's whatever is your jam. And my tool will walk you through. If you don't know what your jam is, it will walk you through why people are actually drawn to you and help you brainstorm there. And I think I've done a pretty good job of nailing it down. But yeah,
That's awesome.
create an environment there that people can come to you for help, safety, security, success, friendship. Does not matter. The only thing that matters is you choosing the one that's most authentic to you. So Nathan is a podcaster, and we love it. He's a great host. He's a resource. He's friendly. So now we are drawn to you because of that. And yeah, if I need help, I'm going to reach out to you, right? And that's the same element across all businesses in PT. Bring them to you.
Yeah, I love that concept, because in a previous podcast episode that I did with the founder of Keat Health, his theory was that you can triple your marketing efforts if you just focus on the patient experience. And I think that's partly what you're talking about here in creating an environment that you say is safe, where they want to be and it's comfortable. If we spent more time focusing on the patient experience, not necessarily the care so much. I mean, we're talking, maybe you are, well, you already said we're already masters in what we provide, right? In our care, but what's hanging on the walls? What are the colors? What does the front office room look like? What magazines do you have there? How is the front desk presenting themselves? How do they call you on that very first call? Is it drab and, hey, when are we going to get in? What's your insurance? Or is it cordial and nice and welcoming and inviting and safe, like you mentioned? Focusing on that patient experience his theory was triple your marketing efforts.
Oh yeah, it's not word of mouth. Yeah, word of mouth. I love when people say, "Oh, my clinic's word of mouth," or "Oh, primarily word of mouth," and they just blow it off. You can control word of mouth, and you always were controlling it. And it's by giving people something to talk about. That's why these successful businesses are successful, is because there's a reason to talk about you. And the more and more we can give them those reasons, the more and more this mystery word of mouth, it's not a mystery. You can dictate that. And so you're either just doing great work, which is good and good for you. That's fantastic. But I agree with you. What if you could quadruple or triple or quadruple that success by just simply taking more time to amplify what they're already saying about you?
Be really intentional about the word of mouth marketing, because I agree what you're saying. It just gets me thinking. We think of word of mouth as this nebulous thing that happens outside of our control, but I think from what you're saying is like, what if we just took control of the word of mouth and used it to our advantage, and we're really intentional about getting referrals, improving the patient experience such that they talk to their friends and family about what you can get out of blankety blank physical therapy. It's more than just the therapy. I love the people. They're another family. We've heard it all before, but what if you were more intentional on your end to make that a real strategy and a push?
Listen, I mean, it's the game is awareness, Nathan. It always has been, and it always will be. How aware of other people's worldviews and how they blend with yours and your worldview, that's the name of the game. And it always has been. So acknowledging that other people see the world a certain way, and that when they see the world the way that you see it, they feel something different. And you want to look for what those things are, because that's the difference between a mediocre business and an excellent one. The mediocre one continues to speak to the same 15% of the audience. The aware business owner and an enlightened business owner continues to be able to speak to a wider and wider and wider audience, and still is the answer for them. But because you are more intentional and more aware of the other worldviews out there, you're resonating with twice as many people, or 3 times as many people, right? It's always been, that's always, emotional intelligence is where you start. It is always where to start. And then if you think that you've done a great job, buy the book again and read the exercise.
Read it again.
Because you I always say this, unless you're getting 100% of the referrals in town, you can always communicate better to someone else.
And if you are getting 100% of the referrals in town, well, FYI, that's only 10% of the population that needs physical therapy.
Exactly. That's true. There's another 90% who you haven't been able to resonate with yet still.
Yeah.
Right? It's always being able to connect with a wider variety is the ticket. It's the ticket to
Yeah,
success.
exactly, man. Cool. Well, dude, I love talking to you. Anything else you want to talk about today, or have we hit all the magic that comes from Roland? I
No,
know there's plenty more.
the thing I think I would say would be to speak to the PT owners. Um, as I've gotten more and more involved with business, privately owned business, the more and more I have realized that that PTs need to take a step back and realize what we're actually doing for the community. Because I don't think it's pain. I don't think it's inferior glides of this and that. I don't think it's return to anything. I think our heads got a little inflated through the DPT era and afterwards around trying too hard.
Yeah.
When I look around at other business owners and even other healthcare professionals, we might poke fun at them a little bit for these little gimmicks and shortcuts. And let's just use dry needling for a great example. So here we got access to this cute little thing, and just look at the tremendous response nationwide. I mean, we have patients all of a sudden are willing to pay cash in areas that they never would have paid cash for.
Yeah.
And it's all from us being a little open to making things simple and accessible, and allowing them to have a platform to give us money for something. And I watch that example and I just can't help but think, if we just stop trying to be fancy and giving them things that they honestly never asked for. I think that's the thing I see in PT is the patients didn't ask for a lot of these things that we're trying to give them and do to them. I would ask everyone just take a step back and think, what did they ask me for? And gear all of your communication and your skill set and your internal staff development around what the patient and the physicians actually asked you for, because I don't think we've done a good enough job of that. And every time I go to the conferences, it's always fancier, more internships, residencies, blah, 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 fellowships. The patients didn't ask us to get a fellowship. So I think and keep pursuing them, keep getting better. I don't think we need to tell them about it. I think we just become really, really good and show them other ways via what they actually wanted from us. Or I think we will disappear, because the more and more obsessed you are with yourself and what you do, the less people care, because you're just getting further and further away from what they actually want.
Yeah. What do they really want? I mean, because they'll pay a lot more money for just a regular massage than a physical therapy session because they want that, right? So getting to the heart of what they really want, and when you find out what they really want, then they'll come back for it over and over again. Just really getting to the heart of it.
Exactly, Nathan. You'll be the solution if you communicated that you're the solution. I just don't think PTs do that. We instead take up all the real estate on our websites and our luncheons with doctors. We get this one lunch with a doctor group, maybe for the first time in 3 years, and they won't have us back again. Maybe you'll get on the phone with them, but this is your time to shine. You know what we do? They always ask us to tell, and I say, we're just here to eat lunch with you guys. I mean, we don't need to, ask away and just being a resource. You don't, why would you botch that one lunch with talking about a bunch of stuff they didn't even ask you to do?
Yeah.
Because you know what, every time I say that and I say, ask away, they ask about my dog's name. They never ask about the PT until like the last sentence is like, all right, well, how do we refer to you? And it's like, there we go. Thank you. But because they never asked, they just wanted a friend, a colleague.
That's right.
They wanted to have lunch with a real person. And so this goes beyond patients. This is referral sources. They're not asking for this stuff. And so for you giving it to them, it's just a little salesy. Here's my thing I always tell everybody, Nathan, and we can end on this. Trust equals credibility, reliability, and intimacy divided by self-orientation. So trust equals credibility, reliability, intimacy, divided by self-orientation. So it doesn't really matter the details of all of those. The one you need to focus on is the self-orientation.
Mm-hmm.
And this can be your phobia of asking for more money. This could be your complex about a competitor in the area who's better. Anytime you say something that indicates a credential you took, a class you took, why you're better than someone else, the patient, they never asked you for that. So you're amplifying that self-orientation meter, and it is on the bottom of the fraction. And so you might think you're helping them by saying all these certifications. They don't care. And the more and more you talk about yourself, it actually might hinder the agenda, because you now might become expensive and somebody who wants to just do your thing. Whereas if you just listened, it would go a lot further.
I love the equation, because if you think about it in true mathematical terms, the less that the relationship is orientated around you, the greater that trust goes up,
Mm-hmm.
right?
I
So
love
if
that
you
formula.
can, yeah, the less you make it about you, the more you increase that trust. And you're exactly right. Patients don't really care about all the letters after our name. I mean, that's nice, but when they get in the door, they're just going to say to the same thing: how are you going to help me? And how you're going to help me has a lot of different there's a lot of different answers to that. If you make it technical, they'll know that you're not listening. If you ask more questions and turn it back onto them, that's when you'll start recognizing the true answers and what you can provide. And it goes even further. I want to talk just to relate that to physical therapy ownership. A lot of owners think that that they are their clinic. And the less they can make the clinic about themselves, the greater their business will become. Right?
Mm-hmm.
When it becomes about a culture and a team and an environment, that's when you see multiplications of increases in business and employee satisfaction. That's when your influence gets multiplied through the community. But when your business is focused on Roland Cochrun, if the business is focused on Nathan Shields, I recognized that for years before I finally got some coaching that talked me out of it. But the more that's focused on you, the less trust you're going to have in the community, and the less impact and less power you'll have as a business itself.
I love that word there. I wrote an article just last week. It should go live next week. And it was the 6 stages of business self-awareness. And I made them up, so don't like read. I was just like talking. But
Yeah.
the final stage that I came up with that through my coaching experience is exactly what you said: impact driven. And it's when you finally have you've arose above everything. It's no longer about you. It's not about your immediate circle. It's not about your clinic. It's not even about your community. It's bigger. It's about the cause. And I think once you can become obsessed with the cause and the movement that you're trying to make, and nothing else matters, that's not only when we are the most fulfilled, but if you look at people doing that, they've made the most amount of money.
Yeah. Everything else is a byproduct of that.
Yeah, the cause.
It comes.
They live in their car. We glorify these software tycoons. These guys, they might have still been making hundreds of thousands or millions, and they were still living in the garage. It just, buying the house wasn't on the radar. It was the cause. It was the mission. It was what they wanted to do that was important. They have the money now, so obviously they got a nice house, but the cause was the most important thing. That most of those guys went bankrupt in the opposite direction, even though they had the millions.
That's right.
Because it was the cause.
Yeah. So in that situation, yeah, it's less about the individual. They had a vision, and everyone worked toward that vision. They weren't working for Bill Gates per se. They were working for Bill Gates' vision of what computing could be. And that's what they bought into.
And to speak to that in terms of what truly gave me freedom, it wasn't the money, Nathan. It wasn't the referrals. The business became free when I developed a platform for my staff to be impact driven and
Nice.
to let them define it. That was when freedom happened for me. The money was always there. I'm just a business person. Obviously, it wasn't difficult for me, but I didn't care about the money. It was the freedom I was after. And
Hmm.
until you give them a platform to thrive and make them excited to thrive, and they believe it, you'll be owned by something until that happens. And I think
Hmm.
that's across all businesses. They will never fall in love with the cause until they know you believe it and they know that it serves a greater purpose. And then at that
Exactly.
point in time, yeah, they'll work hard for you.
Hmm. For sure. Dude, thanks for your time.
Yeah, you bet. I'm glad we did this, man. Been a couple years almost since our first email. So here we did. It took a COVID shutdown,
There
but
you go.
we made it.
That's awesome. Thanks for your time. Dude, if people want to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
So easiest way is right through the website. You need to go to rolandcochrun.com. Or for purposes of this, to make it easier for those of you that are listening and driving, rolandcochrun.com/PTO club will just get
Cool.
you directly right to that tool. Take that
Nice.
tool seriously. When you're done with it, I don't want to hear from you till you're done. When you've done it and put your all into it, then you can email me and ask for advice. But I'm going to want to hear about the exercises first before we dive into it, because I think you'll find the tool is extremely helpful, and I think you'll see the dollar signs there. So
Mhm.
rolandcochrun.com is the easiest way, and I'm accessible. I'm around.
Cool. That's awesome, man. I'm gonna check it out tonight. I'll be one of those people on the website.
Cool.
Cool,
Thank
man.
you so much. I'm glad we did this. I love connecting with you guys, and I love private practice. Um, Always reach out to all of these guys I think all of us want to keep private practice owners alive, well, healthy, free. There
Yeah,
is no reason why things should not be exactly the way you want them. It is an abundant world out there for PTs. It truly
it's
is.
true. Awesome. Well, thanks again for your time, Roland. I appreciate it.
Bye. Thanks, Nathan.